Hey everybody, Jane here, and today I'm doing my review on Do You Want to Start a Scandal? This is a Tessa book, and it is the fourth book in the Castles Ever After series, and it is also part of the Spindle Cove series. Now, I have read all the Castles Ever After, but have not read the Spindle Cove, although I read a novella from that series. So I will be at some point needing to read the Spindle Cove because I feel like I missed out on certain aspects of this book because of missing Spindle Cove. So Charlotte, who is our female character, our heroine, she is from Spindle Cove. And she is actually at a house party visiting with her best friend when this book starts. Her mother has been trying to get her married off and find her an aristocratic husband. And Charlotte is afraid that her mother is going to make a fool out of her as she tries to connect her with Piers. And Piers is a side character from the Castles Ever After series. In book 2, Say Yes to the Marquess, he is Rafe, who is the hero's brother. And Piers was actually supposed to marry the girl in that book, but Rafe, while trying to convince her to marry his brother, ended up seducing her. Whoops. So anyway, the Piers and Charlotte are at this same house party. And the book begins that Charlotte goes to him to be like, hey, my mom is going to try to snag you. You don't have to be snagged. I am not trying to snag you. Please forgive my crazy mother. They are alone in the library talking about the situation, and as a matter of fact, she's naming all the reasons they shouldn't get together, including that he's a bit old for her. While they are talking, and she's kind of insulting him by saying you're old, another couple arrives. So Piers and Charlotte hide behind the draperies because they don't want to be seen that they were alone together talking. While they are behind these draperies, the couple in question becomes loudly romantic. The couple then leaves, and somebody comes in having heard romantic noises and thinks that it's Charlotte and Piers who have been becoming romantic. So Charlotte's mother demands that Piers marry Charlotte, and Piers decides that he will do that. Basically, she's hot. He needs a wife and a son, and why not? But Charlotte doesn't really want to marry Piers for a couple reasons. Number one, she's supposed to go on a grand tour with her friend. She doesn't want to let her friend down. And number two, she does think he's a little older, and she wants a love match. And she doesn't feel like she can have a love match with Piers. She might love him, but he's never going to love her. So that's kind of how the story starts. There is a mystery element to it, as Charlotte wants to prevent them having to get married by finding the couple who were getting romantic and having them confess that they were getting romantic to, save her from ruin and stuff and people thinking she was being indiscreet. This book was on my 5-star predictions, however, I only gave it a 4-star. There were things that I really loved about it, and I have to say this, I'm a big fan of Tessa. I have definitely fallen in love with her work, and I love her writing style, and this book was no different. I absolutely love the writing style. It is fun, and the dialogue is witty, and the characters are just so fun to be with. So I did really enjoy this, even though it wasn't quite a 5-star. I did also want to point out that I thought the bedroom scenes were really well done. That is one thing I've been so impressed with Tessa Dare. She can make it very hot and steamy without making it ick, and that's not something I find all the time. So, and especially because I did listen to this on audio, sometimes it can be a little disturbing, but I really enjoyed it and didn't feel uncomfortable during any of the bedroom scenes. So, take from that what you will. As far as how this book fit in with the other books in the Castles Ever After series, and I think that's one of the reasons I had expected to love it so much, is I really loved the Castles Ever After books. Now, in the other Castles Ever After books, the main plot is usually a woman gets a castle and so can be independent. She's somebody who wants to be independent and can be independent, and I just, that wasn't Charlotte's story. the only reason we're in this series is because Piers was a side character from it. And I just didn't connect with Charlotte like I did the other women in this series. Charlotte is very young, and she's written very young. I don't know exactly if she's 19 or 20, or maybe even a little younger, but I didn't really get to connect with her because she's so focused on her friend and going on this grand tour. And I didn't feel like we got the depth of her the way we did with the other characters in the series. I typically really love the women in the series. Slight spoilers for the series, nothing too bad, but you have in When Scott Ties the Knot a girl who wants to draw animals for encyclopedias. You have the girl in Say Yes to the Marquess who wants to open a brewery. You have Izzy, who's a writer in the first book. So, you have all these really well-rounded, complex, deep women who are doing a lot of things with their existence, if you will. And I just didn't feel like Charlotte fit in very well with that group, and I didn't connect with her because of that. Also, I felt like she wasn't as well developed as some of the other characters, and maybe she would have been if I'd have read the Spindle Cove books, because we didn't really get to see her a lot with her friend. We didn't really get to see her a lot with her mother or anyone else. And I felt like we really missed out by not having her connect with those interpersonal relationships the way that some of the other books had. On the other hand, I did generally like Piers. One of the challenges with Piers is that he doesn't want to open up his heart because he is a spy. He is worried about the safety of Charlotte or anyone he would be with. He is worried about, keeping the government secrets that he is part of. He's worried about the things that he has had to do for his job that were pretty awful and immoral, and that, a woman might not understand. A woman might not accept that he's had to kill people. And that one really was very personal and kind of hit home for me because I was formerly married to a soldier. And one of the challenges in our relationship was there was always a huge distance between us because of his work, because of these reasons, because so much of his life was his work, but then to protect me, he also wanted that to not be any part of our relationship. And that's a really hard thing to have, is a partner who this is hugely important in their life. It is their life's work, their ambition. This is something they're passionate about. And then, you're married, but you can't ask about work. Even like, who'd you have lunch with? What jokes did they tell? Everything felt off the table. So your life with them is limited to the 4 hours they're home a night. And it just, I felt Piers reminded me a lot of my ex, but not necessarily in a bad way, just in a sad way. He did have some faults. I really was irritated at the beginning when he's all like, yeah, I should marry that girl. She's hot. She's young and hot, and I need an heir. It's like, stop. That's creepy. You don't even know her, and you're like, yeah, I need an heir. We'll just get married. Then, and I'll talk a little bit about this in the spoiler section, he does some really crazy stuff later on that I'm like, I kind of get it, but that was a little extreme, and I just am not really on board with it. So I liked Piers overall. There's things that I wish were different about him. Another complaint I had, besides the characters just not quite working for me, was the mystery side plot. And I am going to go again a little more into this in the spoiler section, but there's a mystery side plot, and I was really engaged with it. I love mysteries. And while I think it was very appropriately ended up for the genre of romance, overall I felt it was very much a letdown, and I didn't enjoy how the mystery wrapped up. there's actually two mysteries going on. There's who is the couple that was fornicating or whatever in the library. So who's the couple that just got Piers and Charlotte in trouble? And then also Piers is a spy, and he's actually at this house party to spy on the owner of the house. The government is wanting to basically advance him position-wise, but there's been some odd accounting issues, some unexplained trips, just some different things happening that Piers wants to make sure that there's nothing that should prevent him from moving up in government positions or put him in a position where he could be bribed or anything like that. So there's kind of two mysteries going on, and Charlotte is looking for the couple, and Piers is trying to figure out what's happening with the owner of the house. And again, everything gets wrapped up, but I didn't necessarily like the way it was wrapped up. Particularly, there is an instance where Charlotte almost dies, and the stakes felt very high, and the explanation for all of that I really just kind of didn't enjoy. So the mystery, the plot of the thing wasn't great. The mystery wasn't great. The writing was great. I did love that. Another minor thing, I felt like this book could have used a pet. The Castles Ever After series, all the girls, or the people prior to this couple, there's been a pet involved. In the first book, it was a weasel thing. In the second book, it was Piers' dog, who his brother was watching after. And in the third book, it was a lobster. And these don't seem like big issues, but I really felt like this book would have been better if there would have been an animal in it, because it just felt like it was missing something, and I think that was part of it. Alright, so overall my thoughts. Love the writing. Bedroom scenes were good. Liked Piers. Didn't like Charlotte. Plot was meh. I'm going to go into some spoilers, real particular about things that didn't jive with me. So if you haven't read the book, you may not want to continue at this point, and I will see you next time. Going into spoilers in 3, 2, 1. Alright, so a couple of the issues I had with spoilery parts of this book. We have Charlotte getting poisoned. We have this couple who are, messing around in the library. We have all this stuff from the homeowner of the house who is leaking money and unexplained trips. And the end is very appropriate for a romance, but not what I was looking for, especially since, Piers is a spy. I felt like we could have gone a little bit darker. I felt like we could have gone a little crazier. But the ending and the wrap-up of the mystery really was a letdown for me. And the mystery ended up that it's the man who owns the house and his wife who are in the library messing around. And they like to role play, which is where all the money and the trips and stuff that's not getting accounted for are, is he'd send his wife off to different places to dress up like somebody, and, he'd come visit her and they'd pretend they were other people. And Charlotte getting poisoned, just an accident. The husband, saw some pretty flowers, and he put them on her breakfast tray, and he didn't know they were poison. And it just, for me, that was really a letdown. Like, I can see, since it is a romance, maybe not wanting to do anything crazy or dark, but I felt like we had a little bit of darkness in the other books, and we have some darkness with Piers's background. We do hear that his mother had committed suicide. There is... Tessa Dare has other dark things that happen. We had in the Castles Ever After book, the third book, When a Scot Ties the Knot, we had a man who had memory loss after a battle, and we find out that his children had died, and they keep telling him he's going to go visit his children because they're tired of breaking his heart, and telling him every time he wants to go see his kids, no, your kids are all dead. So, we've dealt with darker issues before, and I didn't feel like it had to have this happy, fluffy, there was no fornicators, the guy who owns the house is wonderful, and nobody actually tried to poison Charlotte. They just thought they were sending up a lily and were sending up Monk's Hood. Yeah, I didn't like the mystery. I thought that was really a letdown. And then Piers, after she gets poisoned, he freaks out and he sets the house on fire to force her to marry him, because it will be realized pretty quickly that the fire started in her room and that, you know, they were alone together in his room, so they have to get married. And I really thought that was a dirty move on Piers, and up until that point, I really liked him. Like, the beginning, yeah. But, you know, I think he hadn't been planning on falling in love with anybody. He hadn't really liked the last girl he was engaged to on a personal level. So I could kind of see the practicality of, she's young, she's probably fertile, she's hot, so I'm not going to have a hard time with that. I could see where he was coming from, even though it kind of, But when he set the fire, that really made me like him a little bit less. That was like a step down. I really did not enjoy that he'd done that. And even though, like, I got why he did it, I didn't think it was okay for him to try to force Charlotte's hand, especially because they'd been intimate. They'd been close. You know, by this point, they'd been physically together, and he'd already told her, once we're physically together, you know, you're not a virgin, we have to get married. So I didn't feel like it worked. Another issue I had was, and maybe this is just something I didn't understand with the book, but I didn't understand why they couldn't go on this grand tour if her and Piers got married. Like, if Charlotte and Piers got married, I didn't understand why her and her friend couldn't just go on the grand tour together a little later and then not have to have a chaperone. And again, I don't fully understand how those things work, I guess. The only grand tour story I've ever really heard was, I read Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, and him and his buddy and sister went on a grand tour thing. So that's really like the first I'd heard of a grand tour. I think, like, I don't know much about it, but it just seemed like her being like, I don't want to marry you because I'm supposed to go on a grand tour with my friend. I didn't like that. I thought that was kind of a weird reason to not want to get married. And then on top of it, how upset her friend was. And because her friend, when she finds out that she's going to get married, is basically like, oh, you were just using me to snag this man. You didn't ever want to go on that tour with me. We're not really friends. I was like, I haven't seen you guys together, so I have no idea what kind of friend she is to you. But I didn't fully understand, like, why she couldn't just be like, hey, we're getting married, and then while he's off doing his spy stuff, we'll go travel the continent. I didn't get it. So yeah, this book I really wanted to like. Oh, I really wanted to love. I liked it. It was fine. But I just didn't love it. I just didn't love it as much as I love the other Castles Ever After books. I will be probably reading the Spindle Cove books next from Tessa Dare, because I definitely did like Charlotte's sisters. At one point, two of her sisters show up, and I felt they were interesting characters and they had an interesting backstory. So I'm eager to read those. But yeah, this book, it was good enough that I had to give it a 4 because I really love Tessa's Dare's writing, and it was definitely superior to a lot of the typical genre romance novels that I read. But it just didn't hit the mark the way that, for instance, When a Scot Ties the Knot or Romancing the Duke did. I really loved those books. I really connected with them, and they were two of the other books in the series. Say Yes to the Marquess I didn't connect to as much, but even that one, I think in hindsight, I liked a little bit more than Do You Want to Start a Scandal? And part of that was just I wasn't connecting very well with Charlotte. So that was my thoughts on Do You Want to Start a Scandal? Have you read Do You Want to Start a Scandal? If you've read it, what were your thoughts? When you read it, had you read The Castles Ever After or The Spindle Cove or both or neither? Because I'm wondering how much that would have impacted my appreciation of the book. So yeah, I would like your thoughts on that. If you have any recommendations of other really good Tessa Dare novels, feel free. If you have any romances involving a grand tour, that you think I might enjoy and get some more idea of like how this grand tour thing works, feel free to drop comments below as well on that. Hit the subscribe button if you'd like more content, and my social media is below if you would like to connect with me off of YouTube. On Smashwords, I have several books on Smashwords. I have books on Barnes & Noble and Kobo, and basically everywhere books are sold. If you are in Kindle Unlimited, I do have some of my newest releases on the Kindle Unlimited program. If you are a member of Audible, I have several books available on Audible and several of my books in the romance package. So if you are an Audible member, you can read Audible versions of my books for free, and or if you are in the romance package, you can read several of my romance books for free. Alright guys, this has been Jane. Talk to you next time. Bye.